The emperor lifts his golden goblet. A faint smile crosses his lips, then freezes. His hand trembles. His eyes widen. And moments later, Rome's most powerful man collapses, gasping for breath. The guests scream. Servants rush forward. But it's too late. In the shadows, a woman watches, calm, composed, and terrifyingly still. Her name is Locusta. She wasn't a queen by blood, but by fear. The poison queen of Rome, the woman who turned death into an art form, and whose potions changed the course of an empire. But who was she really? A cold-blooded killer? Or a pawn in the most dangerous game of power Rome had ever seen? Today, we uncover the shocking story of Locusta, the woman who poisoned emperors, princes, and history itself. Locusta was born in Gaul, roughly modern-day France, sometime in the 1st century AD. Little is known about her early life, but one thing is clear. She wasn't born into power. She earned it, through poison. In Rome, poisons were feared, forbidden, and desperately sought after. The elite, senators, generals, and even emperors, often preferred a silent death to a public execution. Locusta became infamous as a professional poisoner. She was rumored to know hundreds of toxic concoctions, from slow, undetectable killers to instant, violent ones. Her laboratory was said to be filled with cages of snakes, vials of venom, and herbs that could kill a man with a single drop. But Locusta didn't just sell poison. She crafted power. And soon, Rome's most ambitious woman would come knocking on her door. Agrippina the Younger, the ruthless mother of Nero, was one of the most dangerous women in Roman history. She wanted her son on the throne. But there was one obstacle: her husband, Emperor Claudius. Agrippina needed a way to remove him quietly and permanently. So she turned to the best poisoner in Rome, Locusta. According to ancient historians like Tacitus and Suetonius, Agrippina approached Locusta with a simple but deadly task: create a poison that kills without suspicion. Locusta accepted. She tested dozens of mixtures, on animals, prisoners, even slaves, until she found the perfect formula. Then, one fateful night in 54 AD, Emperor Claudius sat down for dinner. His favorite dish, mushrooms. Unknowingly, Claudius was about to eat the most famous poisoned meal in history. Moments later, he began choking and convulsing. Agrippina played the grieving wife, pretending to help. But as the emperor struggled, she reportedly sent for more medicine, prepared by none other than Locusta. Claudius never recovered. The throne of Rome was suddenly empty, and the next morning Agrippina's 17-year-old son Nero became emperor. Locusta's poison had just changed the ruler of the Roman Empire. Nero was young, unstable, and paranoid. He trusted no one, except Locusta. For him, she became more than a poisoner. She was an instrument of survival. When Nero's stepbrother Britannicus began to threaten his rule, Nero once again called upon his deadly ally. Locusta prepared a new potion, faster, stronger, impossible to trace. Nero insisted on testing it himself. So Locusta poisoned a slave, but it was too slow. She adjusted the formula. The next test subject died instantly. "Perfect," Nero said. At a banquet, Nero offered Britannicus a cup of wine. Seconds later, Britannicus collapsed, dead before the crowd. Witnesses froze in shock. Nero simply smiled and said, "It's only an epileptic fit. He'll recover." He never did. From that day, Locusta became Nero's royal poisoner, granted lands, money, and even students to train. She opened what historians later called the first poison academy, teaching others the deadly secrets of herbs and toxins. Imagine that, a school for assassins funded by the emperor himself. Locusta's power reached its peak under Nero's reign. She was untouchable, protected by imperial favor. But she wasn't just a tool. She was a scientist of death, constantly experimenting. Ancient texts say she could design poisons with delayed effects, or ones that caused madness, paralysis, or hallucinations before death. One Roman writer described her as having a mind more deadly than the serpent she studied. But Rome is a city that devours its monsters, even the ones it creates. In 68 AD, Nero fell from power. The empire turned against him. The Senate declared him a public enemy, and Nero took his own life. His allies were hunted down, and that included Locusta. After Nero's death, chaos swept Rome. The new emperor, Galba, wanted to purge the empire of corruption and fear, and Locusta, the woman who had poisoned emperors and princes, became the perfect symbol of everything wrong with Nero's rule. She was captured, paraded through the streets as a warning, and publicly executed. Some sources say she was strangled. Others say she was torn apart by wild animals. Either way, Rome had destroyed its most infamous killer. But her legend, her dark science, never died. Was Locusta truly evil? Or just a woman surviving in a brutal world ruled by men and ambition? In ancient Rome, women had little power. But Locusta found hers, not through beauty or wealth, but through fear. She mastered chemistry long before it had a name, and her reputation was so strong that even centuries later, her name became a synonym for female poisoner. Writers, poets, and historians spoke of her with horror and fascination. She became a legend of darkness, Rome's very own witch, scientist, and queen of death. Some even believe her methods inspired poisoners for generations, from medieval assassins to Renaissance courts. Here are some shocking facts about Locusta and her world. She tested poisons on humans. Ancient records claim Nero gave her condemned prisoners to experiment on. She might have invented slow-release toxins that took hours or even days to kill, something far ahead of her time. Nero rewarded her with estates and even students, making her one of the earliest known state-sponsored scientists. Claudius's death by mushrooms became so famous that Romans started calling deadly mushrooms the food of emperors. Her name lives on. Even today, Locusta is used in literature and media as a symbol of deadly femininity and political intrigue. Locusta's story is not just about poison. It's about power, who holds it, who loses it, and what they're willing to do to keep it. In the shadows of marble palaces, she brewed death for the empire's most powerful, and for a brief moment controlled the fate of Rome itself. Her poisons killed emperors. Her potions crowned kings, and her story reminds us that even in the grandest empires, sometimes the most dangerous weapon is not the sword, but the cup. If you found this story fascinating, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves the dark, hidden corners of history. Because this was not just the story of Rome's poison queen, it was the story of how one woman, with nothing but knowledge and nerve, brought emperors to their knees.